Thursday, August 25th, the CUC hosted a transportation dinner discussion to talk about transportation plans in our area. This is that recording.
Us heavily on economic and community development. We've been contracted. I'm also a WBE and a DBE firm in Indiana. We've been contracted to work with MACOG in the public engagement portion of the Connect Transit Plan that we're going to talk to you about tonight. And our firm is myself, Hubert Morgan, Paula Sowers, and Dr. Kirk Harris, who's not able to join us this evening, but we will get you connected with him soon. We are also working with the firm Jarrett Walker and Associates, which holds the contract and is doing all the transit analysis work. So our job is here to connect with you and help make sure that we're uplifting voices and engaging a broad base of stakeholders in the process so that we can affect change over the long term, but make sure that this plan is solid as it moves towards this concept into a draft and final plan. So I'm fortunate to work with Paula and Hubert, and I'll pass it back to Hubert for his introduction.
Thanks, Tina. My name is Hubert Morgan. I work primarily in urban planning, done a lot of work in Northwest Indiana. It's a pleasure to work on this project because so much of mine, Tina's, Paula's, and Kirk's work is about ensuring that the work that we do has an impact on those who don't typically get to come to the planning table. Those who are vulnerable in terms of the systems that should provide them with the type of safety net that they need, whether it's access to good transportation, access to housing, access to good education. In this particular project, it's all about access to good transportation. That really drives so much of the opportunities that so many of us need, because the headlines show that the region that you live in is at the forefront of growth. And those opportunities that are coming about, in a lot of instances, the current transportation system doesn't provide the type of access that people who are looking for opportunities would provide. So, Ms. Godet, when you said that you are an advocate, we love that. That's what you bring to this meeting. We are going to try to provide you with some information that arms you with enough information that you can keep people accountable for what this plan is all about. And we might need you to advocate on behalf of, implementing some of the strategies that are in the plan. At some point in time, we might even ask you to become an activist on behalf of the people who are not here at the table. So this is the work we do. We try to be able to put people like yourselves in the best position that when questions are asked about transit, you can answer them and you can hold people accountable for being able to deliver them. Again, my name is Hubert Morgan. I'm going to ask, before I switch to Paula, who is on our team, the other people who are on the Zoom. So if Ms. Godet, if you can just introduce yourself, we'll ask Mr. Robb and Ms. Peterson to do the same.
My name is Marla Godet. I'm the founding mentor of Mentoring Moments. I am a mental health professional. I provide training and professional development to organizations in regards to mental health awareness, implicit bias, and leadership. And I have a team that does work in the field in regards to a position that I created called clinical mentoring. And what we do is fill the gap where people are in need of therapy and waiting, or maybe not even wanting it. We help them while they're in that in-between place.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Peterson?
Yes, my name is Jeff Peterson. I'm a beginning entrepreneur. Been working with James here, working on some stuff. And our goal is to do live outdoor events, live indoor events, and also have a digital product out for families to connect using the outdoors and especially fishing.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rob?
Hello, how's everybody? My name is
Well.
Louis. My name is Louis Robb. I'm owner of Lil Lou's Beauty and Barber College. I have 2 barber schools, one in Gary, one in Hammond, and we're opening up one in South Bend, Indiana. We're offering entrepreneurs. We're trying to create early entrepreneurs. We're giving people an alternative means to other than just colleges and universities. We give people an opportunity to become successful. My slogan is that we make successful professionals. We help young men, young women, older people, people that are incarcerated that can't find jobs. We give them a chance to build a career.
Thank you. Thank you for your work. James, I'm going to ask you to ask the folks around the table. Paula, if you could start.
Hi, I'm Paula. Did Jeff go? He did. Okay. I'm Paula Sowers, and my business name is Visions GPS Branding, but I'm wearing several hats today. One of them, I work with MACOG and with this team, and it's an amazing team who's out there trying to get the voice heard, the voices and faces that aren't seen. There are places that we've been that we don't see this, and I am so loving that we are here together today. And the other hat that I'm wearing, I'm the vice president of the MBDC, and that's the other hat I'm wearing today. I'm working with Antonius in the city, and it's working with minority-owned businesses, and we're launching a program, and we'll talk about that some other time.
Thank you, Paula. James, if you could help people who are around the table to introduce themselves.
Don't be shy. Come on.
Uh-oh, I see Tom out there. Hi, Tom.
Hi, my name is Akila Karanja. I'm a nurse practitioner by trade. It's most of my time, but I'm a writer. Also, I just published a book, The Emancipated Gospel and African American Struggle for Spiritual Liberty. I also do children's work. I'm doing some animations and teaching children about photosynthesis and different scientific processes, and looking at people of color and showing them that they can see themselves as scientists. And I also do wellness. I teach wellness, and we work in the community developing children. We're starting a leadership program at West Washington. You're going to take them on a skating party, and the young people are mentoring younger people. So we're mentoring them to lead out and head out. So those are the things that I do, and I'm working on making it a business. I'm just doing it. I haven't figured out how to make it a business, so I'm here.
Good luck.
Yeah, I'm like already.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Ash. I'm a retired librarian, so I know a lot of you all. I volunteer helping people come out of prison to reintegrate back into the community. And the other thing I work on is advocating for policy and law changes as they affect people who were incarcerated or have criminal records. For about last year and a half, I've worked for Dismas 5 days, 5 hours. And for them, what I basically do is life skill programming and also community outreach work, helping people understand issues people face who are coming out of prison.
Thank you.
By all means, I'm gathering the courage.
I'm getting the courage.
The new kid on the block, you know, we are.
It's all good.
Hello, my name is Felicia Seals Buchanan, and I am a grant writer, kind of new to the area, and just coming to learn a little bit about South Bend and some of the issues that you're experiencing here, and how I could be a part of a solution for what's going on in the area.
Thank you.
Okay, my name is Gregory Gill, and I am the owner of Gill's Place, and we are community builders. What we're doing right now is we bought some land, and we're I got some blueprints for y'all. Excuse me, it's the first time I'm speaking on the mic. I might be a little bit nervous, so I don't know if to look here or look out here. So but anyway, Mr. James here is helping me put together a business plan. In my mind, what I'm thinking about is how to help lower the gun violence down around the city of South Bend. So I come up with an idea to create jobs by targeting couch potatoes. And who I'm referring to as couch potatoes is the guys that stand on the corners, the guys that's in the crowd, 7 or 8 guys standing in the crowd that ain't got nothing to do. So if I can pick 2 or 3 of them out of a crowd and get them to come to this area and help build a house, I have a contractor on standby who's willing to help teach guys and to learn a trade, a skill, at the same time earn some money. So this is the beginning stages of it. I'm the new kid on the block, and pretty soon my speaking will get better.
It already is.
And you can ask them to go to Mr. Rob's barbershop.
There you go.
All right, all right. You gotta have some money for it then.
Hey everyone, I'm Antonius Northern, Assistant Director of Business Development for the City of South Bend. Interested in equity projects and really trying to, in a really smart way, try to grow our business community and also the stability of our neighborhoods, looking directly into communities like the one that I've come from, so Black community members as well as Latino community members, and seeing how we can really kind of start the stair step of bringing this back into a stronger community as a whole, and looking at grant programs, looking at loan programs, looking at all of the city services and how they impact our community.
Antonius, how are you?
Doing well. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing well.
So did you want to say hello to folks?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Come on, Joe.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joseph Luton. I am co-founder and owner of Important Joe's Ethiopian Coffee, native of South Bend, Indiana. The family's been here for almost 100 years. So I'm very invested into this community and want to see the very best for it. So I'm sure I see a few familiar faces. I'm happy to see all of you all here as well, too. It's always fun.
Thank you.
Computer's doing something weird. It's probably Microsoft trying to control things.
They
There we
heard something
go.
good was going on.
Okay. You have the ability to share your screens, right?
Yes, yes, yes. So let's do that. So we're here today to talk about a project that both MACOG is the regional planning agency for 4 counties, and they are responsible for the trolley service that primarily works between Elkhart and Goshen, and then connects with the service that's provided in South Bend through Transpo. So when you'll see some slides that will have not only South Bend, but Elkhart and Goshen. So these 2 transportation agencies have come together to, and forgive the date on here, I missed that one. But they're coming together to do a plan for what will be the next 10 years. And within that 10-year period, there's an opportunity to be able to ask some really key questions about how we deliver transit to not only people who take it today, but how we provide transit for our kids and our grandkids. I'm going to show you a handful of slides that are important to being able to build some building blocks of understanding about how this planning process is going through its motions. We are in phase 2 of that. So it's important for you to know that this is primarily about the fixed route services that are being offered between these agencies. One of the conversations that I've had with James is to ask some questions about how we could potentially do a trolley service along one of the major arterials. We will have that discussion at the end of the presentation, and we are primarily going to ask you about the ideas that you have about this particular service, that we can take some information and share it back with MACOG. So what we would like to be able to do is just talk to you about the transit project, and there's some key concepts that we need you to understand as we kind of go through this, both in terms of this presentation and as we go not only from this phase 2 part of the process, but as we go into phase 3. There are 4 of these concepts that we want you to understand. We want you to understand, what do we mean when we talk about a ridership? What do we mean when we talk about coverage? And then there's this whole thing about growth. How could we grow the system that's in place? And if we envisioned a system that had no financial constraints, what could that look like? And so we will present to you some of that. We will ask you for questions. And then one of the things that we would love to get from you is a commitment to be a part of the next phase. The next phase is all about how the final product, the plan will look. And we have to ask some questions of that final product, because if we are silent and the plan comes out and the plan doesn't represent or advocate on behalf of people who you care about, then we might be too late. So this is kind of the bullet points that we will cover in the time that we have next. It's 3 phases, and we talk about these 3 phases from this standpoint. There's some choices that we made in terms of trying to understand, where routes are, how can we, improve on routes, where do people live, where are jobs, where there are concentrations of jobs, where there are opportunities. And then what happened is that as a team, we came out and we asked people to, to talk to us about what some of the choices that they would like to see in terms of a strengthened transportation system, transportation system that could be supportive of people who are not privileged, And what then happened was that our transportation consultant took all of that information, both in terms of what people shared and in terms of a survey that was done, and came out with some concepts that they wanted to present to us. So for the choices part of it, it was all about what can those priorities look like. So we had meetings and we had workshops and we engaged people in ways to be able to understand what choices people would make. That way we would be able to then figure out what their priorities would be. So here is what I would like to be able to just talk to you about, not in a very deep conceptual way, but for you to be able to understand some of the critical things that are needed to be able to advance this conversation. When you look at how our neighborhoods and our roads and, our neighborhoods and roads are constructed, you will find that there are main roads and there are arterials, there are roads that go into our neighborhoods. When transit systems get put together, there's some choices that they make in terms of where should we put the buses and at what frequency. Those are critical to understanding how to design that. In this particular case, what you're seeing here is a goal that can be put in front of you in terms of a transit goal. And that goal is to be able to provide the highest level of ridership in terms of moving people from where they live to where they might work or where they might shop. But what we see here that most of these buses are on the main roads, which then means that you might have to walk from where you live to the main road. And that is one of the things that we talk about when we are looking at what this ridership goal is. We want to increase ridership and we want to increase the frequency of buses along the main arterials. The trade-off that gets made is that when we have high frequency on our main roads, is that you have to walk from where you live to where those buses are. But it allows frequency to be a high response to the goals that people might have. Another goal might be that instead of having high frequency on these main roads and having people walking far distances, is that we might put a lot more buses on the neighborhood streets to get buses closer to where people live. And this is called the coverage goal, where we take the number of buses that we have at our disposal as a transit system, and we not only put them on those main arterials, but we put them into the neighborhoods. What happens there, though, is that people might not have to walk far to get to a bus, but because there are not as many buses on those main arterials, they might have to wait longer for those buses. This is called a coverage goal. And this is, so there's a ridership goal and a coverage goal. And what these bus systems do is that they figure out how can we balance between ridership in terms of high frequency, but having people walk far to get to their buses, and coverage where they might not have to walk as far, but they have to wait longer. In the systems that we have in place, if you are in a place like Goshen, for instance, a lot of those buses, you have to wait an hour to get them, right? You might have to walk from, many blocks to be able to get to that bus. So what we are trying to do is to be able to balance between coverage and ridership in whatever planning that we do. This slide tries to get both of these goals on one slide to say, why does it matter? you can see that the ridership goal allows some of these things to be worked out in terms of the maximum average access to the opportunities, because, it's, the bus system subsidize passengers at a different level, whereas the coverage goal, that service gets closer to every job and every home. So right now we are at this concept stage. So we took all of those priorities that people talked about. It's a priority for us to not have to wait. We would prefer to walk, or the reverse, we would prefer to walk and not wait. There's some parts of the neighborhoods in which people feel that we don't want people waiting for long distances, long times. So we took all of those priorities and we came up with what's now referred to as a concept report. These are concepts that we would like to provide to you and to the populace around the region. So I would like to introduce two other concepts, because the concepts that I just spoke to you about between coverage and ridership, it's all about taking the system that we have currently in place and saying to ourselves, in the plan that we're doing, we're going to take the resources that we have today and we're going to move them around to be able to say that if people want more coverage, we're going to move resources, buses off main lines to neighborhoods, or move buses from neighborhoods to the main lines because we want higher frequency. We're not adding any resources to this plan between coverage and ridership. And that's why those two are at the bottom of the triangle. So this is existing investment being moved around between coverage and ridership. What we would like to advocate for as, planners in this particular exercise is that if we're planning for the next 10 years, we should definitely ask the question, what if we added resources to the existing system? And this is what we're asking you to understand as the growth concept. We would like to grow the system more. And if I can say it this way, if Transpo had 50 buses in the system and they are trying to determine between ridership and coverage, they're just moving buses from the main lines to neighborhoods. What if instead of just 50 buses, they added another 20 buses? That way, someone wouldn't lose because you had less frequency. So it's a matter of adding resources to the existing system. As planners, one of the things that we also do is we ask the question, what if we say transportation is important to those of us who don't have the privilege of having a car sitting in our driveway? We need to be able to support people who need to get from their homes, not only to the job, but when they get off work, they might have to pick up their kids or they might have to go and pick up groceries, right? When you have a network of buses that have frequencies of every hour, that is just not manageable for people. You all know that in the current system, there is no bus service on Sundays, which then means that people who need to get from home to their place of worship that are on Sunday, they're just out of luck. So we have put in this particular process a vision concept where we're not constraining how we see the system based on the fact that we can only afford this because we don't know where we're going to find the funding. We have put forth a concept that's called the vision concept that takes away all of those constraints and places a plan for those who need transit in front of you. This slide just tries to let you know that there are places in our country that are similar to South Bend and the Maycog region, who provides transit, and they provide transit in terms of providing more resources. So this shows where South Bend lies in terms of the capital that's provided. And let me just say that this needs to be digested in terms of how you read this. So if you go to our website, you will be able to see these and see them in detail. But we felt that it was critical for us to be able to show you that there are places around the country that provides, and we call them peer agencies, that they provide routes and systems that, you know, in a lot of instances are much more competitive than our region. So we just felt that it was necessary to be able to do that. I'm going to show you the growth concept, where we are literally saying that the existing system, we need more growth, we need more resources to be able to grow the system. Because when we looked at the system, we realized that the service that's being provided to people who live in and around South Bend, frequency wasn't high enough, and we weren't able to deliver services to the neighborhoods that we were looking at. When we talk about the vision concept, we are talking about not only looking at these red lines, which means that these lines would come like every 15 minutes, as opposed to, in a lot of instances, the growth concept are only increasing these lines that you see that are red in the growth concept, where that's 15-minute service as opposed to blue lines that are 30-minute service. In the vision concept, what we're trying to say is that we need to have a much more robust system to be able to provide service for the people who live here. So South Bend and Mishawaka, and this is what ridership and coverage looks like, where it's all a balance between, can we provide ridership and coverage for people, or do we have to provide ridership at a level that's 80%, but coverage at a level of 20%. So if you can imagine that there is something that talks about moving the trade-off from having a lot of coverage to where there's a lot more ridership. Where there's a lot more ridership, we lose out. If you can see my cursor, a lot of the routes that are in this area, those are the trade-offs that we make. We no longer have those routes because we have increased the buses that we have to be able to have more frequency on some of these lines that you see that are red. But this southeast part of the city no longer has the coverage that you see on this side. So there are trade-offs. If we want more ridership, we get less coverage. If we get more coverage, we have less ridership. Someone loses in this approach. In Elkhart and Goshen, the starting point in Elkhart and Goshen is so much less because the amount of routes that they have are just so much less than what's in South Bend, that the amount that we would be moving if we go from ridership to coverage, and then you can see that if it's 90% ridership, there's hardly any of the coverage in these neighborhoods. And again, the detail of everything that I have here and I'm showing you here shows up on our website, and we'll show you where you can go and see that soon. So before we get here, I'm just going to pause and ask you to ask the team, myself, some questions about this, and we'll see if we can answer them.
Any questions that are coming back right away? Joe?
So is this public or private?
Is it, the question is this public or private?
Public. Okay, so it's in collaboration with transport, so they're looking to optimize usage, or are they looking to optimize reach?
Yeah. Trying to figure out how to sacrifice coverage for we can, more people ride, or do we have more coverage and less people?
Well, it depends on the business model. Are you looking for profitability, or are you looking to serve the community?
Hubert, are you able to hear the conversation that's happening here?
Not totally, but I mean, the fact that someone is answering the question is great.
Yeah, what's happening here is the conversation is like, okay, so is this public or private? And then the question becomes, it's like, okay, so well, fundamentally, it's like, okay, so I'm going to frame it my way, okay? And correct me, Joe, if I'm not getting it right. But is the bias, where does the bias lie in terms of thinking about how to solve the problem?
Yeah, and where is the data being sourced?
And from where is the data being sourced?
So this is a public system. So we'll start there. And I don't know if I am understanding the question. Tina, are you understanding the question?
Well, I understand the first half is the public question. So this is specific to the fixed routes operated by the South Bend Transpo and the Interurban Trolley for these two service areas. The data that that has gone into developing these concepts comes from Transpo and Interurban Trolley ridership data and fleet data. So, the understanding that these two organizations and the transit consultant, Jarrett Walker, kind of their expertise on looking at the existing system. There also is an underlying layer of data that comes from, publicly available sources like the census and the American Community Survey. So the report does have the paper report that's on our website, especially in the choices report, shows a lot of the hard data, especially around socioeconomic factors. So where are areas of poverty or elderly, public housing, where are major employers or educational institutions. So that is really where the data comes from, is just your publicly sourced data, and then qualitatively conversations with operators, people that are, the two organizations that run the system, and then talking with other community members, stakeholders, business community, and the input that we're collecting here. So qualitative, we get some of the story and insights that the hard data doesn't tell us, and then there's the hard data that's publicly available. I think that answers the question that I heard.
And let me just add,
is, have they surveyed the actual ridership?
Did you hear that?
yes, I heard that. Let me also add that the federal government requires the systems to collect data that you would not believe. So every time you get on the bus, they are able to to collect information about frequency, the types of people who ride the bus, where they ride it, how frequently they ride it. So there is just tons and tons of data that comes from the ridership about their preferences in riding each and every one of those buses. Now, the question might be, are we asking the riders about how to improve the service? And that was also done through a survey in phase 1. So we asked them what their priorities would be. We asked them, what some of those trade-offs would look like. So riders were served, we provided the surveys to riders to be able to get a lot of the feedback that you're seeing here.
Question?
What type of surveys? What type of surveys were given to the riders? These were all the riders on this whole line from South Bend.
So what type of surveys? So we, as a team, were part of not only providing people who came to our meetings in terms of trying to not only just answer questions about the surveys, in terms of their priorities, in terms of what they would like to see in an improved system, but we try to be able to say, you need to understand some of the trade-offs that need to be made in order for you to answer the questions that we are asking. So there was a lot of education that was provided to participants and to riders to be able to then say, here's a series of questions that we're going to ask, but we have provided you with information about how best to answer them as you would be able to as a rider. So I'm not sure if I answered the question, but that's how the surveys were pretty much conducted.
I'm still a little confused. I guess what I want to know is, did you hand me a survey while I was sitting on the bus?
Yeah, I'm going to answer that.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes, there was a lot of surveys that went out. We did several public meetings. They were broadcasted on the news. We've had it on the website. Transpo has had it out, signs out. MACOG has had it out, and I don't think we had one here. This is the first one. Yes. Transpo people were handing out. Yes, they were all handing out paper surveys, and we also have a QR code that was out given to a lot of people. So there was people that were surveyed, and then there's another.
I just want to add to that. There is a survey that's out now. It's available both in English and Spanish. And so with each phase, there's been a survey done of the South Bend Transpo riders. Basically, there are interns that are out at transfer stations, working to get riders' input in this. And then the same for the interurban trolley being at the transfer center in Elkhart. We are aware that there are limitations to surveying, right? So some of it is, we've tried our best as an engagement team to make sure that the surveys are, readable, can be done in a kind of more quick manner. And then we've actually gone an extra step to do some of what Hubert mentioned, which was some of the education around it, so that that the writers and the general public who may be interested in voicing their opinion could be engaged in the process. But we are aware that there are probably pockets of writers and communities that we haven't heard from. And that's where we've been trying to work with nonprofit agencies and other community partners that have a broader reach to help us, spread this both electronically through the QR code, a flyer, or in person. So
Who
I
who
just
are
want to
you?
recognize the challenges of surveys and, you know,
I
you're
think
right
that's
to be
the way-
asking.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We have a question on the floor,
Yeah, and that kind of links to one, I have a two-part question.
two-part question,
One of them actually was about the non-writers.
non-writers.
Yeah, and when you're going to try to market, and then someone like me that doesn't ride a bus, has to road bus, that, you know, this is economic, or it's something that, you know, I can pick versus.
How are they marketing this so that somebody who's not currently riding the bus, how are you marketing to those people to change their mind so that they become a rider, right? That's question number one.
Yeah,
And then part two.
that is something about the astronomical cost of it.
Yes.
Why, what it costs, and really, that's the amount I would say.
Yeah, he's just thinking of the astronomical cost of vehicles and how much money they would be saving. Comments to that? Hubert, Tina?
The astronomical cost of vehicles and how much they'll be saving.
With the
I-
ride.
With the
rides,
rides
cost.
versus the rides, you know, the ridership.
So
I'm gonna take the bus.
I can,
Buy that car.
yeah, so at this point, we're not making a case for non-riders to jump on the bus today. But what we are communicating through social media, traditional media, and email blasts is to let people know that if we make improvements to this, what type of improvements to the system would make you become a rider. And that goes back to the ridership concept that Hubert talked about. Because a lot of people from the survey results we've gotten so far said, well, if the bus came more often, I know that, you know, there would be a couple more people in my household that would ride it. We've also heard from people that are car riders that say, you know, if the route was near my home, I would use that as an alternative. So we are getting some data back from individuals who may use the bus currently, or people in their household may use the bus currently. And we're also hearing from people that aren't using the bus, saying that they would want to come on if these improvements were made. And some of this data, for those of you that like to dig in the data, is at the front of the choices report, that first survey that we did. So we can show you some of that and answer questions there. But the getting to the point about, as this moves towards the draft and final plan, that's where it may be more clear as to how to make the case. And this would be for MACOG, Transpo, and Interurban Trolley to begin to make that case, as well as stakeholders and advocates to kind of begin to work together to make the case of moving towards this growth or visionary concept, because the more you move towards that, the more it's going to be a better service to all. So I'll pause there to see if
Tina, there are some comments in the chat.
Okay.
One of the one that Marla, if you want to go ahead and ask it again.
Yeah, you've been patient. Thank you, Ms. Marla.
I think, did somebody answer?
Yeah,
said
but
we're-
I mean, I would like Tina and them to answer it too.
Oh, I said, were the surveys taken to the unsheltered community and the able differently who oftentimes utilize buses? And if not, can that happen at this juncture?
So in
So
turn,
why?
yeah, go ahead and speak to that, Paula.
Yeah, we did do, Kurt and myself went to the Y and we did a presentation like this with the women there, and we heard a lot of feedback from them that they're afraid because they go to work in Elkhart and they have to sit under a, you know, in the dark and there's no light. And so it's hard, and they've already are, you know, battered women that are going out there. And so it's uneasy. So we heard a lot of stories. So we did collect that data too. So go ahead, Tina.
Did you go to the hotels for now? I guess that's one location, but we have so many other places where people are unsheltered and they use the bus systems. They're working, they're all over the place, and you see them out, and many of them are able differently. Some are in wheelchairs, some are using the hand apparatuses to walk. We have so many people living in apartments and the community group homes through Logan Center and ADEC and all these different places that oftentimes they do not have buses and transportation. They take community buses, city buses.
And we heard from some of those community homes where they literally, people with wheelchairs and whatnot have, like, I think is a mile and some half a mile to travel before there's a bus stop. So we did talk to some of those people as well.
We've met with a lot of agencies that are responsible for advocating on behalf of people who don't make it to meetings like this. We have met on a number of occasions with Goodwill, and as an example, there's a housing agency in Elkhart that we have met with on a number of occasions to be able to ensure that when we are having meetings, not only do people come to the meetings, but people who are responsible for a set of clients who are vulnerable, they too understand, you know, what needs to be done to advocate on behalf of those clients.
And Ms. Marla, I think there is always an opportunity for us to be connected. You know, and that's why we are making an extra effort through some additional focus groups so that we can get in touch with writers, with the individuals themselves. And so to that end, you know, if there are specific organizations, I know Logan Center is one of those that is on our kind of email distribution list to receive information, but we're definitely open to getting the word out through the various streams. And that's why we want to work in partnership with leaders, you know, here at the grassroots level that can, you know, sometimes cut across some of the organizational, you know, barriers to getting information, or, you know, just workload, caseload kind of things. So I think we're having some success in building and strengthening partnerships between this process and community, but we recognize that we want to continue to penetrate into various neighborhoods and organizations where meet people where they are, in short, for that. So any ideas, we're open to that. And currently there's still a survey open, and we could help. There's still time to plug some people into that opportunity.
We have 2 questions on the floor, I think.
Okay.
Yours first.
I have 2 questions. One is, did anybody talk about wanting to see more, you know, the shelters you can stand under on the corner?
Definitely.
People, because I know the only time I ever took the bus was when my car was in the shop and I had to get to work. And but I'm thinking, I'm 70 now, and I'm thinking, when, as my friend said, I don't need to drive no more, but I'm not saying I don't. But the day will come, and I think that would be a big thing for me is yeah, I'm about 3 blocks to where the closest bus is to my complex. But the concept of standing in the winter with the wind blowing on you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if there was a shelter there,
They did.
at the front of my complex, I'd be more inclined.
Yep.
As I got older to take the bus. And then the same thing about when it's in the summer, you're standing
Right.
there and the sun's beating down on you.
Or raining.
So I think that's something you all need to consideration.
Yeah, and there was some conversation about that, and there also was conversation adding to that about there are no sidewalks some places.
Yeah.
And in the wintertime, we had a conversation with one young lady that their child rides the city bus and they have to walk several blocks where there is no sidewalks. And this is an 8-year-old child and they're walking through the snow, and if it's not plowed, you know, where are they walking? And this is in the morning when it's like 7 and it's pitch dark.
Well, I was gonna say, the front of my complex, no, my complex has no sidewalks. It was built, as war housing. So in the winter, you basically stand in the street to
Right.
catch the bus
Right.
and hope to God that someone doesn't run over you.
That's something we need to talk to Maycon about,
And,
right? Did I say that out
Yeah.
loud? Sorry, Maycon.
the
I
other-
just-
And municipal governments.
Yeah, there's one important factor in this is that shelters and some of the roadside, you know, equipment, that falls under a different federal funding program than the money that it takes to fund, you know, putting buses on the street and so forth. So some of that responsibility also falls on the individual cities or towns to be able to provide some of that infrastructure. So this is where the budget implication is, you got to have some local match to meet grants, federal grants, and, you know, and then this is where it competes with other priorities that exist within communities. So it's definitely part of a strong system. And it's part of the funding challenge as well.
But that's helpful to know, because I sure know that I'm gonna start working on getting the shelter in front of where I would catch the bus.
All right,
Yeah.
we've got 3 more questions. I think, Joe, have you been having your hand up for a minute?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I just wanted to say.
Okay, so young lady,
Okay, so my question, I'm a nurse practitioner. A lot of my patients do get to the bus.
Uh-huh.
So they come to the clinic, now they ride to get their medications. I'd like to see, that's one reason I'm here. I'd like to see a system that allows my patients to get around. Also, there are some that they can't go further than their house. A lot of times, in the front of the house, a lot of times they just don't go to the doctor at all.
Right.
And so I'd like to see a system that's suitable for them. What is the transportation? I think somebody said already, I think underserved.
underserved, yeah,
the med-
okay. Well, we have a nurse practitioner. Sorry, I messed that up. But anyway, she's here and she's here to advocate for those people who she serves that cannot get to the bus or even
There needs to be
there need more
access.
access for
Yeah,
that
more
handicap.
access bus.
Yes, one of those access
that's right,
buses,
medical
medical access buses. That's what she's advocating for in a bullet point. Yes,
It's fascinating to me, well, you know me, I'm kind of like a one-trick pony. Got a problem, create a business, create a problem.
there you go.
And so the thing that pops up in my mind is, it was just indicated that all of these different bureaucratic groups control different ways of funding this, right? But we can't do that. I mean, there's been reference frequently to go back and read the plan. I'm not reading the plan. I mean, I'm just being honest with you, okay? I got stuff to do. But at the same time, these are problems that are really meaningful, okay? I, again, think in terms of, I can get it that Transpo may not be able to do everything for everybody all the time.
Right.
So there are things that are being identified that doing it this way, these people don't benefit. Do it that way, these people don't benefit. I get it. But when we look at that, is there a way for us to take a look at what's the optimal strategy? And then how do we create businesses in the community that create jobs, that feed people, that put people employed, that actually start to work with it and turn around and drive traffic to our small businesses in the neighborhoods, in the community, and create wealth and generate stuff like that. The other thing is that I'm sitting here and one of the people in the room, I'm not going to name any names, is a grant writer who understands how to have for-profit businesses able to write grants and those sorts of things. There's got to be a way to be able to bring some of these ideas together and think in terms of how do we work as a community to create solutions that create, I don't even want to say create wealth, they just create some equity in the communities that we're concerned. I'll get off my high horse.
Did you guys hear all that?
Yeah, so James, I'm going to respond to the question this way. I don't know if I can say that I can answer the question, but I'm going to respond this way. That I think that what you're talking for and advocating for is strengthening the community in a very comprehensive way. Because if we strengthen the community in a comprehensive way, then this transportation plan is just one of the systems that gets strengthened. If you strengthen it where jobs are concerned, that's another system, access to healthcare and access to, the type of strengthened corridors along our main streets, businesses, private entrepreneurs, all of these things strengthen communities. And we need access to these opportunities through these systems that don't provide enough access to be able to get people from where they live to these opportunities that you entrepreneurs are trying to do. So there's another planning process that strengthens not only one system, which we're talking about in terms of transportation, but where do people live? Where do people work? And how do people move around in the communities? This is a more comprehensive way of strengthening the communities. And this is the mission that MACOG has. So when we ask those questions of MACOG to strengthen the communities, then this system then has to be in place to be able to provide people the opportunity to move from where they are to where those opportunities are.
Part of my response to that is that when I hear systems, I hear silos. And I think one of the things that we all have to be intentional about, right, is collaborating with all of the different systems, all of the different silos. We have to be the ones that encourage, force, I don't care, nudge, use the adjective you want in order to be able to get people to intentionally collaborate with each other so that we wind up basically creating solutions that eliminate this inequity that destroys our community. I'm done.
Okay, hey, that's good. We have two more questions on the floor. Joseph, do you want to ask? Come on.
So I was a little late to the party. I was wondering just a little.
He was late to the party. Wants more clarity.
What the proposed concept is. Are they talking about consolidation of the current busing system or introduction of a trolley system? What is the conceptual?
What is the conceptual proposal? Is that what you're going back to on your PowerPoint? He came in late, so what are you trying to accomplish? Hubert, you want to take that one?
Yeah. The responsibility of this team and what we're trying to accomplish with this presentation is to make people aware that there's a planning process that is going on at the moment. That planning process is to be able to get the feedback from people who are users of the current system, people who know people who might be users, people who reside in the region, to be able to give their feedback about some of the critical concepts about how we can come up with a stronger bus transportation system for both MACOG and the interurban trolley service. So this particular meeting is all about getting you, the viewers, to be able to, and the participants, to be able to have a better understanding of what it takes to strengthen a bus system, to be able to then come up with a plan that responds to the needs of the people who live in the region that uses Transpo and uses interurban trolley service.
So.
Bert.
the end goal, I think,
What's the end goal?
trying to figure out.
That's what, yeah, that's what they're,
Learn all of this, like what is cause. Yes.
yeah, every 10 years, it's, they have, am I correct? Every 10 years that
Yeah.
this survey,
Correct.
it comes up, and every 10 years, that's what they work on, and they do surveys. Yeah.
So Hubert, it might be helpful right now just to just toggle back between this Elkhart Goshen, South Bend, Mishawaka, just to look at the existing system as it is today. And then the picture is, as they move into this next phase of drafting actually drafting what the existing system may look like, you are going to see changes to the map. So the big picture is, I think when we talk about, how do we move towards creating a more equitable transportation system, a more equitable region, transit being fundamental to that because it creates access and connectivity, there needs to be more investment. And here the slide is showing you how the system could grow with some additional investment. And then if there was a whole lot of investment, say money weren't an object and the big money infusion happened, it would look like that vision. And if you just look at that vision concept, this helps significantly address the various community members, business community, the vitality of the various neighborhoods and the people who live across Mishawaka and South Bend.
And provides Sunday service.
And gets you Sunday service. It gets shift workers that might work 3 to 11s or midnights. They can now get to a vast majority of employers. So right now, what the ask is for you to let us know, which of these do you prefer? Would you prefer that MACOG and interurban trolley begin to move towards a vision concept? Or would you rather see growth? And then the second question is that ridership or coverage map. In some scenarios, if you increase ridership, which means the bus comes more frequently, less people have access in their neighborhood in the fixed route system. So today, this plan only looks at fixed route bus transit. It's not looking at a supplemental trolley concept that may have been discussed in the community in the past. There is some new money on the table for some kind of van pool opportunity that could be kind of a gap filler. So that's the extent of it. But to get to Mr. Summers' point, there is, you know, the historical nature of siloed planning, siloed way the systems work. We're trying our best to help inform our client and the public and help create bridges of collaboration on this project. So right now is a great time. Nobody's late to the table right now, because if this is important to the entrepreneurial community to look more holistically at how transit impacts business opportunity and community growth, then please take the survey and chime in on what growth or vision might mean for your specific service area, community, or business. And then stay engaged with us as we move into the draft plan, so that we can make sure to the best of our ability as an engagement team that we help create space and find opportunities for collaboration to happen. That's kind of a commitment that our team has and part of what we feel brings value to our role with our client. So
Okay.
again, ideas we're open to.
If
Somebody's
if
asked,
this
talking.
investment comes, wherever it comes from, are you guys planning on investing in infrastructure, personnel, and how do you intend on combating the current challenges that the Transpo is having with labor shortages and overworked bus drivers? Like, how do you combat that?
Did you hear the question?
I did. Hubert, did you want to answer that first? I can.
I don't know how to answer that question. I mean, I think
Well,
that this
bus
planning
drivers right
process.
now
Right.
to accommodate, and moving forward, labor challenges are going to continue to be exacerbated, you know, and so realistically speaking, how do you intend on actually executing any type of growth if you're not investing into personnel? And then there's differences with the union, and then also with the CEO and the leadership and the trajectory and coming to agreements. Like they have ones right now with payment and how much you get paid and all types of challenges. You know, so I don't see like where does how do you grow and be able
Okay.
to right. Exactly.
Hubert?
And who ultimately suffers? It's going to be the people, the less than, you know? I mean, because you're talking about if we go inter-urban trolley, you're cutting off the whole southeast side of the city from accessibility to transportation. That's not realistic.
One thing I'd like to add is, while I know, you know, this is just looking at fixed routes right now.
And this is all a concept.
Right. I know.
This is a concept. It's
One
not.
of the fixed routes
Yeah.
I'd like to see added. You know, like you have the Blackthorn route. It doesn't run all day long. Blackthorn just runs the time to get you to work, and the time to get you home. And they've got a couple, you know, start in the morning time and a couple I'll get you home times. I think that the same thing could happen like for routes that are kind of like Blackthorn to get you to Elkhart, because I have a couple of people that are working in Bristol and they're paying $50 a week for whatever bus that it comes out of their paychecks, but whatever bus their company,
Their vans, yeah.
and all has, they pay $50 a week to get to work and all. And see, I think you'd be surprised the number of people who pay $50 or $60 or $70 a week to get to Thor and all those other factories in Elkhart where they're making $20 and $22 an hour. But the reason they can't do it is y'all work with a lot of people because of their crime, like driving on a suspended license or lifetime, never going to their license back. And the work release centers and the South Bend reentry centers, see, they don't, the DOC, Department of Correction, takes them there, charges them to take them there, okay, charges them to bring them home, and those people pay and everything. And I think you'd be surprised the number of people who would pay you $50 to $75 a week to walk to some place on a main thoroughfare to catch a bus or something.
Yeah,
To
van
get
pool,
them
yeah.
to Elkhart. And I think that should be in your thinking when you talk about money.
Seems frozen on my end. I don't know if,
Yeah, it was frozen on my end too.
Oh, the labor issues. Can you hear?
For the bus.
Hello, hello.
But you don't
Yeah.
for a 12 passenger van.
Can you hear now? Hello?
yeah, you froze for a minute.
Okay, they just want to know, they just want to know, the bottom line is, how are you going to do it?
Yeah. So I just want to acknowledge that each of you are, spot on in identifying issues that make transit planning a challenge, and it can't be done in a vacuum. Land use planning we've talked about and is highlighted as one of these issues. So when you talk about labor, employment, getting people to and from, Elkhart is an example of the challenge. Many of those manufacturing plants being, outside of a city center, making it more difficult in these van pools and higher charges to get to work. So the scope of this plan doesn't specifically address all of these factors that you're talking about, but they are certainly part of the conversation, part of the thinking that's going in. Where the plan needs your help is if there are particular stories or needs that you want to highlight. One, you can communicate it in the survey, or on our website, you could make a comment, or you could just email one of the members of the team and we can include your comment or insight request back to the larger planning team.
Tina, I'd just like to add, there's a gentleman who asked a question about the uncertainty of hiring and some of the issues around unions and things like that. This plan doesn't address those issues. There is, though, a body of people who are responsible for kind of the vision and mission of these transportation agencies. It's their board. Their board has kind of given the responsibility of coming up with a plan to us as consultants. They, though, are also responsible for how they conduct the administering of these transit agencies. So how do we keep them accountable? I mean, the fact that they might not be doing their jobs in terms of union contracts and things like that, I would just say that from a civic standpoint, if there's a question that we have in terms of accountability, we should say to the boards of these organizations that you're not doing it well. Because if we come up with a great plan that has a fantastic vision in terms of where this transit system should go, but you're not, on the other hand, administering the agencies the way that you should, then we have a problem. But the plan that we're working on is not part of the administering of how the running and how to run the organization. So that's how I would answer the question that was asked.
Okay, and I think we have one more from Antonia has a question.
I guess. It's not a framework. So,
Come and stand here and say if it's a love framework. Oh, man. He's gonna do that to me.
right? It be beneficial to a certain part of the population.
Can you hear him?
No.
It's a little choppy. I heard about beneficial to certain parts of population.
Yes.
I guess how much engagement have you had with the employers around the transit?
How much have we had around the employers with it? Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I think yeah, because it's too complicated.
It's too complicated. He's gonna leave it there.
Okay.
That's
let
what
me-
he's wanting to know is how we're engaging with the employers.
Especially like
Especially the large scale.
So, so Paula, I think that Tina alluded to the fact that we recognize that a lot of employers are in places that transit doesn't get to them. And that's a whole nother set of issues in terms of why were employers allowed to locate in those positions where transit isn't existing now in the first place. But that's a different part of the question. To be able to close the gap in terms of that, there's some short-term strategies that are being thought about and supported in terms of van pooling that MACOG is actually looking at to become a part of this plan. Let me also add something. I think that Mr. Summers alluded to this. And James, I'm just gonna say that I know how busy you are, but the other people that are in the room who should hear what I'm about to say, that there's a plan that's being drafted now, and we cannot not read and make sure that what's going to be written up in this plan, which will be the document that guides these organizations for the next 10 years. So James, I'll just ask you to delegate to the people in the room to read a chapter each, and then come back to you and
I
give
called
you
you
a
for that.
What am I having you read?
How long is it?
Oh.
How many pages is it?
Like
We'll
50
send you
or
the
something.
executive summary.
No, hey, I'll commit to that. No, seriously, we'll turn around and we'll focus. See, I really believe that we need to be focusing in on how we change this stuff. Okay, you guys who know me, you know I'm just an entrepreneur. Okay, my whole thing is that this is stupid stuff from the standpoint of it's like we don't have enough money to be able to do this stuff. This is stupid. Okay, the money's just going to the wrong place. So now we turn around and we start thinking in terms of how do we solve the problem, right? And generate the revenue to make a return on the investment of solving the problem, right? We can do this. We can absolutely do this.
People go pay $75 to $100 if they're making $22 an hour.
There's all kinds of ways that we can start moving into this. We just need to be able to start getting creative. But my thing is that we can also start creating some local businesses that will really benefit. And I know y'all aren't talking about the trolley, but I am in love with the idea of a fabulous high technology trolley running from downtown to down Lincoln Way to the airport, attracting tourism, right? Attracting businesses, people to turn around and identify and notice businesses that are all through the community, for businesses to grow up around the tourism that happens as a direct result of that sort of thing, and to intentionally
revitalize the communities that are being excluded and have consistently been excluded from all of the conversation. So yeah, I'll turn around and we'll work out a way to be able to get everybody reading a chapter. But you may not be happy with the feedback that you get on your chapter about.
See what you did now?
Just saying.
But I'm glad that your voices are being heard. That's what we need.
And we thank you all for putting this together.
And let's look at other ways that we can take this and connect other people. Now we've got the live, and there's food that somebody's gonna eat. And we've got the recording, and we've got the Zoom, and we've got the recording. Let's put our heads together and talk about how we're going to leverage the recording in order to be able to get people to listen to it and provide feedback and provide some challenging stuff. I know when they listen to the recording, I'm gonna get cussed out, but I've been called everything but a child guy, so it doesn't matter.
Just quick question, have you all talked with the South Bend Reentry Center, which is part of the DLC, and then part of the county, which is Ducombe Center? Because those tend to be places, they almost all work in Elkhart or Bristol, but to find out roughly how many people don't have license, so they can't drive, although they do drive, but they can't drive. Because you might get some insight in talking to people who it's not about money, it's why they don't own a car. It's about they broke the law and they can't drive.
Can you introduce us to those people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just come over for dinner at Dismas house one night.
Oh, yeah.
We'll feed you good.
That's right.
It's a halfway house for people with who gotten out of prison recently, and some of those people are working at 22-hour jobs, and the only way they're getting to work is because one of the people at the house went and bought a bigger van to take people back and forth to work.
Hey, he's an entrepreneur. He's getting more money now.
Because he gets $1,000 for everybody.
There you go.
He refers, and therefore he's got to get him to work because they give him his $1,000 in increments. So he went out and bought a bigger vehicle to get people back and forth to work.
All right.
Nice.
Are we wrapping up or how's this going?
Yeah. I just, if I could just quickly, Ms. Marla had two questions in the chat that we didn't answer. This is back on the survey stuff. The first round of surveys, we had about 500 respondents to that. And right now on our second survey, we're just under 500 again. Again, we encourage you to take the survey. Paula, share the email link with anyone that's open to the public. And then you had asked about high school youth or, older youth. South Bend, Mishawaka, there is this school relationship ridership connection. So we do have some understanding of youth data, same with the interurban trolley. And also some of the tracking around college students that may use it.
Well, I was asking were they included in the numbers because I don't know about Mishawaka, but in South Bend, people are consistently pushing youth to use the bus, use the bus, use the bus. They give them bus passes. Why won't they use the bus? But they're not going to cross over in territory, neighborhood to neighborhood. And so, I mean, I've had kids go to JJC because they won't use the bus. I'm not doing it, period. So it's just that I don't want to be something that people are looking at with an expectation, because at this point in our lives, and as this is the city of peace and we're claiming it to be as it should be right now, they're not catching that bus. So, and that's boys, girls, all of them. It's just something to consider that I don't know if everybody knows you need to consider.
Right, and I want to add to that real quick that I did talk to Amy at one of the sessions that we had where we had a Latina single mom with 3 kids who had to leave work at 2, go pick up her kids at school, and then drop one off, then drop the other one off, then drop the other one off, then go back to work. Then again, after 5:30, go do that again. And they asked, well, we're afraid to be on the bus. So Amy said that they do offer bus tours so that they can go on the bus and with the mom and to show her, you know, here's what they do. Because a lot of young kids, and I know you're speaking about a different thing, Marla, I totally understand that, but I wanted to flip that other side where they are doing something, an outreach where they can get the kids on and maybe with a transpo person and say, these are the things that happen, or here's how we go, and have those one-on-ones with transpo.
Is it possible to get a paper survey? Because I have 1 or 2 people, oh my God, I'll be 2 hours on the computer with them trying to fill out the form.
I think you can print it off too.
Okay.
They can print off the survey, right?
Yeah,
And
but we
paper
can also-
surveys are needed for people who need, are you allowed to assist them with that, Tina? Because
Yes,
some
you
people
can.
are not very good with reading and they're not want to tell you that. So, you know, if you have relationship with them, we can help them read it.
Absolutely. You could assist somebody in taking the survey either by reading it to them and check marking it, or just assisting them as they go through the process. So, you know, this isn't a scientific.
They want to do it themselves.
That's fine. We can print it
get
off.
paper one.
Yeah, we'll get you a paper
Yeah.
one.
We do. I can, I'll email those to Mr. Summers and Paula, the PDF versions of the survey, so that you guys can have those as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate any chance that you have to help spread the word, to encourage folks to take the survey. And again, your ideas, we welcome that. We want to collaborate you as we move forward into the draft planning process, so we can help elevate some of these issues and engagement in a meaningful way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we're getting close to wrapping it up. Hubert and Mr. Summers. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm very happy with
Stop sharing your
with the
screen.
responses and involvement here. The big thing for me is taking the recording of this basically and pushing it out and getting other people to give response and share more information. And for us to act as advocates, because this is a really big deal to me, to make sure that the folks that we really care about in the community, in the neighborhood, have a voice. And we gotta make them feel like they have a voice, because that's one of the most depressing things to me, that people just give up because they just assume that they're never gonna be listened.
That's right.
Save us money too.
We
Studies
need
have
to-
shown if you're working and have a criminal record, you have less of a chance going back to prison if you're working
There you go.
and making at least 18, 19 an hour. If you're down there with the $12 an hour at the McDonald's, you might commit crime again for this stuff. So, I mean, this has more of an implication than just back and forth. It can help reduce recidivism.
Cost of living.
Yeah. And as we move into phase 3, we need to make sure that what gets into the plan is what needs to be in the plan. So some of you guys need to read the plan. Yes, James.
I'll read it.
I'll read it too.
Thank you.
All right.
So James, this doesn't have to be the last meeting. So let us figure out how we can meet again and as we go into phase 3. That way, people will be able to follow up to make sure that what we're talking about in this phase carries over to the next one.
No, I think the great news is, first of all, I think you guys did a great job. And I think there's been a really, really good job in terms of conversation and actually listening to people, so that so that they feel like they're being heard. This is what we can share with others so that now when we do it again, even more people will want to participate and be engaged, because it's not the same old song, okay? They're going to feel like there's something better that is coming from this, and that they're actually going to have a voice, and that's what's been missing from the equation. So thank you for doing this, and I look forward to working with you on doing more.
And that this project will have an impact, right?
There you go. I like the way you said that. Okay, thanks, everybody. We will connect. I will, I know I'm gonna spend the rest of the evening making sure that the recording downloaded and that sort of thing, I can disseminate it. Yeah, well, I've had some technical problems with those challenges and that sort of thing. But then we'll sit back, we'll assess, we'll figure out how we're going to share the recording in order to be able to get the best return on the investment. And then we'll turn around and how we'll take this further in order to be able to accomplish the goals that we want to accomplish. But I just want to thank everybody for your participation. God bless you. And
James, thank you very much.
Hey, my absolute pleasure. You're doing something that is near and dear to my heart. I'm gonna let Paula close this out. No, is that what? Did
No,
you
I
want
was
to
just
comment?
gonna cut their. Stop sharing.
Just thank you, everybody. I loved hearing your stories about what you're doing in the community. Keep it up. I'm glad to hear we had some Gary Hammond in the house, and that's my backyard. So just thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you all in a future meeting, and hopefully in person too.
Thanks, everybody.
All righty.
God bless. Have a great evening.
Good night.
Bless you. Good night.
Take good care.
Bye-bye.
Good night.